So in the news this morning, we've heard a lot of things. So, for example, one of the things that one of the news items that Leo Baga has read and has even played some audio clips is with regards to the transition to grade 9 next year. So the grade 7s entered grade 7 last year. They said, they didn't have teachers for an entire term. Then some intern teachers were hired. Some intern teachers were hired. These are English teachers who were told, go and teach these guys biology. So they went anyway. They did the biology thing they could do. Those 7s have gone to 8. Those grade 8s, now they are grade 8 and the 6s have become 7s. The same teachers are teaching the same grade 6 and 7. Those same 7s of last year who are still continuing to suffer this year with grade 8 will enter into more sufferation next year when they transition to grade 9. Do we have classrooms? We are constructing them.
Okay.
This is because junior school is domiciled in the previous primary schools, which are now called comprehensive schools, which of course ended up to standard 8. They're introducing a new class, calling it 9.
Yep.
Call it class or grade, it's 9. Do we have classrooms for the 9s? We've never had classrooms for the 9s. Have we been building them? Apparently we have. But no. In this last few days, toward the end of the year, we are putting all efforts
to finish everything.
Classrooms.
No. We're putting all effort to ensure.
To ensure that we finish.
I don't know about that we finish has come after that ensure, but just know that all effort is being put into ensure.
Yes.
Just be happy.
Yeah. Because next year those kids need to get into new classroom and they need to have desks.
And do you know how many classrooms are needed?
Yeah.
16,000
across the country.
Yes, please.
In all public schools.
Yes, please.
All right. Very good. Do we have those ready? So this is among the very many other things that are happening in our education sector, right? We are seeing KCSEs going on now. Are you transitioning from KCSE and then you go into post-secondary education? Are you sorted in terms of funding for post-secondary education? Do you know whether you shall be qualified to get a proper scholarship in the university funding model? That is all those questions up in the air. It's actually a crisis in the education sector. And that's why we've invited Allan Cheboi, who is a data and technology expert, currently working with a campaign called the Sigei campaign, which he'll tell us more about. Karibu sana, Allan.
Hi, how are you? Doing well, doing well.
The last time you were here, we were still talking about information and data.
Yeah.
And it was about what? Misinformation,
disinformation,
counter-information, and all those things. Now you're here with, again, information and using data to just look at what the country is saying.
Exactly.
And that's why you'll be telling us about what the people are saying about education and the education sector. Karibu sana.
Asante.
Now, please welcome him with today's proverb. This week, where are we?
We are in DRC. DRC stands for the Democratic Republic of Congo. Okay? Maize grows for those who do not have teeth.
Maize grows for those who do not have teeth. Interesting. Yeah, so for me, I think the proverb basically means opportunities most of the time will come to people who might not immediately see how to use that opportunity. And specifically, if you think about how maize grows, right? For you to consume maize, you need actually teeth that are hard enough to chew the maize. But sometimes you really want to think about opportunities might be presented to you. You don't have the capability or capacity to use it immediately, but it doesn't also mean you can't use that opportunity, because at the end of the day, this person who doesn't have teeth can sell the maize, right? And gain some value out of it. So that means if you have an opportunity, there's also other ways you can use that particular opportunity to benefit yourself, right? So I think that's primarily what that particular proverb means. Yeah.
Into side, you can even grind the maize and make porridge.
Yeah. And make porridge, exactly.
Kunywe ama ugali, kule ugali. Don't just look at the maize. Look at maize as opportunity.
Yeah.
Very good. That's a very nice one. So the ZKE campaign, and last week here we hosted two people, Kothopondo and Nerima Wako. We're talking about it and what the conversations are around the youth. Last week was the issue of bribery and people's experience with bribery. And during that conversation, we had then a bit of more information coming out of stories from Mdu and Nerima on what they've heard about bribery in school. that people are actually not even, they don't consider it bribery. They just consider it, just tipping a teacher so that then the teacher looks at your child favorably and starts giving them, extra lessons.
Preferences.
And the child starts performing a bit better. That's not bribing the teacher. It's just tipping.
Support.
Just tipping the teacher. And if you don't tip the teacher, then
you will be tipped.
Yeah, then your child tips.
Your child will tip the scales.
Yes. And from that, the Sigei campaign then posted that, and there's been a lot of reaction and feedback around it. And people then going on to say, this is actually not just a small issue about teacher tipping the teacher. It exposes a lot more issues. But first of all, the Sigei campaign, what's it about?
So the Sigei campaign, if you think about how we've seen what has happened over the last few months in Kenya, and the Gen Z protests and them expressing themselves in ways that, they want to be heard very, very well. So one of the key things we started thinking about is, when you talk about public participation, all these processes are very analog, and it uses a lot of resources or techniques that collect information from the well-known people who are interested in politics. Not everyone is represented in these conversations. So the Sigei campaign is something that basically integrates the voice of the youth specifically, but also other underrepresented communities within Kenya in a way that we collect information from where the youth are. And where are the youth? In social media. Some of them are watching, for example, this live broadcast, and they would want to go to the comment section and express themselves about an issue. Some of them want to use WhatsApp instead of, having to go to, I don't know which boardroom or which particular spaces for you to start writing, hundreds of forms that are being presented. People want to be met where they are. And the Sigei campaign is basically, basically we are trying to determine how can we use something called deliberative technologies to collect those views and opinions about issues that the youth and especially other Kenyans are really thinking about, and they are it's close to their hearts. And we did that, and the issue about bribery, a lot of people presented what they really think. They presented how they've experienced bribery in one form or another. We did a lot of the analysis, and we were able to say, okay, so this is how bribery shows itself when it comes to the conversations about bribery in Kenya. Same thing, we then went back to the audience, and we asked them, so what else would you like to discuss? And exactly what Eric just mentioned in terms of education, that is one of the key priorities currently in this country. So that is actually data, that actually is informed by data from opinions and thoughts collected by hundreds of Kenyans.
That's quite a bit. And the issues that I imagine, if you just think about education, we keep talking about it here all the time. Ndu just wakes up every morning and she says, here's education. She flips, right? And it's whether we're talking about early childhood education, whether it's a junior, the lower years in primary school, the transition from 6 to 7, just the sitting of an exam, and you call it CAPSEA, and how it's moderated, going into junior school, grade 7, 8, and now moving into this 9, in secondary school, and how the secondary schools managed and payment of school fees and funding, and there are very many things that just become something. And what you've been saying, that there's a crisis in the education sector, seems to be what's coming out as well from the public.
So we've talked about some of the brick and mortar things that we can see, right? We know. If you want to start at the ministry level, where there's, capitation nightmare, where they want to talk about infrastructure that should be handled from the ministry level, that doesn't happen, the taking care of teachers, etc. But then it's interesting to me now that it's not just the complaint that comes from what you can see in terms of hard infrastructure, but that people for whom this education is delivered are now saying, you know what? We can see it too. We can feel it. I'm not getting, for my child, for example, what I should. I'm asked to pay a little extra so that my child can be paid attention to. What are some of these things that are coming now from it's not the things we are complaining about anymore only, but it's now combined and compounded? What are those?
So, from what we've collected in relation to education crisis, one of the key things, and I'll just look at some of the claims that we were able to collect, and we collected these views from TikTok, from Instagram, from Facebook, from the YouTube broadcast that was done last week. The motivation bit is one of the key things that people highlighted. So motivating, so you're paying school fees as a parent, you're going to, your children are going to school, but you still have to go into your pocket and give an extra thing for your child to actually be prioritized in that particular school. So that's one of the key things that emerged. So many people express saying, I've actually been part of this. Some of them saying that the reason I actually decided to take my kid to these international schools is because of that. You'd rather pay high in terms of fees than having to pay, and then you still have to go into your pocket to collect that particular to share that. The other thing is specifically about financial incentives, which currently are necessary for quality education. So that's one thing that was also raised. Parental involvement in terms of effective education. So many people express that schools are not involving them in decision making. So, like for example, you will see school fees has been hiked from I don't know which particular cost to this particular level of cost. So those are some of the issues that came up a lot. And of course, when you're talking about universities and especially the loans and the scholarships, the help loans, that became a very huge issue. Access to education is becoming more expensive every day.
That just points out when you hear people saying that I'm paying an extra so that my child can be noticed, can be prioritized in class. It's basically telling you it's congestion in the classrooms. So it's a poor teacher to pupil ratio.
Yes.
It is inadequate number of teachers working in our education sector. And yet we have trained so many teachers who are jobless.
Big issue. Let's take Kiswahili, for example, and just an example we can add on to that. Kiswahili, for the longest time, has been an issue for a lot of students, right?
Yep.
Passing the Kiswahili with more than a B has been a big issue, whether it's at the primary level or at the secondary school level. So imagine if you had a class, and which is the case for many, many schools in this country, of 60 plus in the class. You have one Kiswahili teacher for that class. I'm not talking about streams, because the likelihood of you having another Kiswahili teacher in another class is high. But this one class has 60 students. There is one Kiswahili teacher. Already the subject matter is one that's a bit iffy for a lot of these students, right? And this teacher, of course, expected to deliver that knowledge and information and ensure that the students have grasped the concepts, and then you test on it and then ensure that, they've learned. I repeat, it is already hard. There are 60 students in this class. There is one teacher. Okay? So, of course, then goes to capacity issues. But then on top of that, you're being asked, well, somehow, if you give me something, I can find the time to attend to your student. So if you can somehow find the time to do that, then can we not find the time to discuss things like, how about we split these classes in two? How about we ensure that the classes have 30 or 40 and not 60 or 70? So those are some of the issues that we ought to be looking at. So then you want to ask, is it fair then? At the end of the day, it's not your fault that there's 60 people in the class. It's not your fault that there's just one teacher in the class. So if you have an extra 1,000 shillings every 2 weeks or something, is it wrong then for you to say, okay, let's give teacher Muga an extra 1,000 shillings to pay attention to Daisy?
It is exactly wrong.
Exactly. It is absolutely wrong. We are not dealing with the fundamental issue of why that situation has presented itself. Why do we have 70 students in one class with one teacher?
It's actually criminal.
Why?
True.
You see, when you are employed to teach, you are employed to teach all those students. The very attention that you are providing for this one student, XYZ, is the attention you should give all the students. And if you can't, within the 40 minutes that you're given, then as a teacher, you should find a way of doing so. This business of saying that you overworked, if you don't like it, then why leave the job, for heaven's sake, go and do something else. You don't have to teach. Because if you're going to teach, it means you have to provide equal service for every student who is before you, every, without exception. There's no ifs and buts on this one. If you can't, leave the profession. Find another job that suits your temperament and one which caters for your crooked inclinations. Find one. There are many jobs. For instance, you can work for the county, okay, government, wherever you are.
That suits your crooked inclination.
Yes. You can work for the county government, and you can choose the department that you want to work for. I'm simply saying this: you cannot find excuses and look for reasons as to why you cannot teach the students, because as is required. You know why? There are very many schools who also have similar problems, where you have students who are many in a class, and yet there are teachers who manage to ensure that those students pass, and you will not hear of this 1,000 shillings here, 500 shillings here. The difference is those teachers are committed to the work they're doing. It's not complicated.
A couple of people actually were mentioning, so I was looking at some of the comments on the videos, and one of them mentioned, imagine I handle a class of 89 students teaching biology, marking all those papers, not complaining, no tips. And that's one of the teacher that was saying that. Another one said, I handled 77 and I knew each one of them by their names and their faces. And then another one says, in a class of 40, you have 40 minutes to link, teach, and review. Learners do not learn at the same pace. So how do you dedicate enough time? I think if you look at the root cause of, these issues, I think it's basically in terms of the number of resources, and this is in terms of teachers, that is allocated per class in these institutions. So going back to the root cause, I would actually say that, these teachers need to be enough in the first place.
They do.
In order to handle the number that is required.
They do.
Right?
Yes.
So that they're able to dedicate enough time for them to be able to deliver.
See, Alan, we're discussing a situation where they don't exist.
Which is...
And the students have to be taught.
Yeah.
Okay?
The students exist, the teachers don't.
Yes, exactly. And the numbers don't add up.
Yeah.
I was a teacher in a period where we had 40 just for or thereabouts. Yet you found some teachers found the time to give extra tuitions. I was against it then, and I'm against it even now. Yes, okay, because if you can't teach the child during those 40 minutes, there are very many hours in a day. You can make arrangements for the students to come on a Saturday.
Yeah.
You can make arrangements for the student to stay for an hour after school, after 4 o'clock. You can make the time over lunchtime. You can make the time.
Interesting.
If you really want to teach, you will make the time.
That's true.
If the acquisition of knowledge and understanding, comprehension is your goal, if that's your goal, if that's your passion, you'll make it happen, is what I'm hearing you say.
Yes, you will make it happen.
That's true.
You will make it happen.
There's that one side, which is obviously a teacher who's driven, who is doing this because they love what they do and they want to do it. And then there's the other side, that this teacher, despite wanting to do it, they are not facilitated to do it. Because you're teaching biology in a class of 80, surely you're going to have a problem.
There is already a problem.
You are going to have a problem. You can't even say it. Let me set just a
80
small
students
test,
can't fit
and
in that lab.
And I mark. How do you even start marking? How do you do? Wow.
Imagine in a lab, 80 students, and
80.
here you are, the supervisor, trying to ensure that this particular procedure that
They
they are
all
working
get
on, that they all
titration.
get it. Hey, how? In 40 minutes? Is that not the length of time that we teach nowadays? 40 minutes?
Yes. You know what makes this conversation
possible
worse is when you look at schools that actually have labs and schools that don't.
Yes.
And yet-
Increasing the inequality.
Yes.
We're hosting Allan Cheboi. Allan is the data and tech expert and working with the ZKE campaign. What's the ZKE campaign? It's what is it again? Let's say.
Yeah, so it's a campaign that enables the youth to have voices, and largely every other person in Kenya to have voices where they are, seated where they are as they are right now.
Yep. Non-aligned and non-political is just basically what are the issues.
Yeah, what are the issues?
It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
What are the issues? The issue that is emerging as a very, very big one is a crisis in our education sector. And yes, there are very many ways of looking at it. And so the views are being collected, right? Even on YouTube and TikTok and X and Facebook. And there's a WhatsApp channel. And already people are saying, so what is the next thing? When you ask the question, are you asking whether there's a crisis in Kenya or are you asking for a solution to a crisis in Kenya?
So we are hoping to collect feedback on anything that you've experienced. First of all, one of the most, because the question is, in your experience, what are the main challenges within Kenya's education system? So you can, and that is a very open-ended question. You can, send a voice note if you're using WhatsApp, maybe just to also share how people can be able to contribute to this conversation. So first point of contact for us to contribute to this conversation is the live stream on YouTube by Spice FM. The other way you can contribute to this conversation is going to any social media platform, whether TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, or any other social media platform you use. Just search for ZKE. So ZKE, those 3 letters. You should see an official page called ZKE Official. And on that particular social media platform, you can comment on any post, including the ones that are being posted recently. Those views will still be collected. One sure way that you can actually be able to contribute more efficiently is through our WhatsApp number. So if you go to WhatsApp and you save this number, 0701 244 896, 0701 244 896. So if you save that number, we have an automated responder that you can chat with. So if you just send hi to that number, it will ask you, hi, my name is ZKE. We are doing this campaign, and it will ask you this particular question. And you can either use a voice note if you don't want to text a lot. You can use a voice note, submit your claims or your statements on how the education crisis has affected you. You can then and it is a very efficient process that will enable you to submit. You can also type as much as you can on that particular responder, and you'll be able to get we'll be able to get all this feedback. At the end of the day, we'll compile all feedback, and we'll be able to come and share and say, after this discussion on the education crisis, these are the emerging issues that we are seeing people experiencing. Yeah,
this is what we are seeing happening. Okay,
Yes.
Now, what would the solutions be to this city? I mean, so if you just think about what we're describing as a crisis. So we've just talked about crowding in schools, right? Lack of adequate facilities in schools, which now just entrenches inequality. And we've talked about this many times. Let's even talk about funding. One of the things that is in the papers today is a fresh bid for free education. Karungo Adangwa, the senator for Kiambu, is saying all this money that we put in bursaries, just the CDF bursaries alone, comes to about 112 billion shillings, various bursaries. And then there's the governor's bursaries. There is the Ministry of Education bursary. There's a presidential bursary. If you just consolidate all this money that's coming from the same pot, it's all coming from the National Treasury, going to MPs, 290 of them, going to women reps, 47 of them, going to the ministry, going to governors, why not just put it all into one budget and say, we are sending money per child to schools, right?
Yes.
That looks at
Your free education.
That looks at funding, and then you say, a majority of our children in Kenya are in day secondary schools, for instance, right? There's a government policy that there's free day secondary education. But the situation on the ground is clearly this is not free day secondary education if MPs are giving people bursaries to go and pay school fees in the free education. Clearly, there's a disconnect here.
Yeah.
Right? So why not just put that money directly instead of creating this big guy called an MP? Put the money, go fund education.
You know, the thing is, the thinking and the thinkers who understand the education sector and those who know what ought to be done exist. And suggestions such as the one you've made have been made before.
Yes.
The thing that seems to be the constant drawback is the will. Because we have a growing population. It is clear that we may plan for it, but the implementation of those plans never see the light of day. And to understand it even better, you just need to look at the continued proliferation of private schools. Because people who understand business understand education is an excellent business. Why? It is the one thing a Kenyan parent will do anything for. They will buy, sell, steal. They will make sure that their children get educated. And it is understood. So the moment there's an institution that promises good education, they will take them there. Now, those who end up in public schools because they don't have an option or they can't afford to take their children to private schools. It's really not that complicated.
It's not even a discussion.
No, it's as simple as that. So, because they understand this, they now have to, they leave their children to the indignity of what we're discussing here. You're 100 students in a class, you're 80. For heaven's sake, but those classes haven't moved.
Same size.
No, they were built for 40. So you tell me, when you get out, what do? Do you climb up on top of your desk and then walk on other desks before you can walk out? It gives the impression that that entire room is full, packed. When the government talks about providing for education, I assume that this huge budget that we keep talking of is supposed to also cater for infrastructure. Not this discussion of infrastructure where now, like you're talking about the CBC and you're saying, we will do this. In the Uhuru government, we had the same stories. Magoha came up with chairs that were supposed desks. That story never ends. It's just that with every story, you never hear the end of it, meaning it's never completed. Until somebody else comes in and starts their own story, which is similar to the one you heard, which was not completed. And so you're wondering, money was allocated for that one. Where did that money go to? Because it wasn't. And had that money gone to where it was supposed to, this discussion would be different.
Yep.
When was the last time the government bothered to build new schools? When was the last time the government bothered to expand new schools? Because if we are looking, let's say, for instance, let's take an area like Mombasa Road. Let's call it Mombasa Road Secondary School and Primary School. And we are looking at the number of people who are there. When was the last time the government said, in 5 years' time, the numbers are going to be this. Let's cater for it. And since they have the space, let us build more classrooms. When? And how often do they even do it? Schools that seem to do well have an alumni. People who went to that school, if it's a really old school and it's a national school, they are the best advantage because the alumni have been there for a long time and many of them have the means. So these extra things that we talk about, either they have the might to push the government to do certain things for those schools, or they themselves will collectively get together and get things done. Now, surely, just what I've just described tells you that the education sector is in shambles.
Yeah,
It is. Yeah. And building just from that, I saw this case that was in the news just a few days ago of students, grade 6 students that were doing examinations, and apparently they did fake examinations.
Yep.
That contributes to it because then this means that that particular school was not accredited to issue the examination, and they pretended to the parents that, we are accredited, so we can issue these examinations. And that just shows how trust that the parents have in schooling is. And I think one of the key things that I also always say when it comes to discussions about education is that, education is an equalizer, and that's why parents have to do anything to actually get their kids to school, whether it's public schools, whether it's private schools. There are people who come from really, really low income families end up getting a lot just through education. So,
I think that right there is why the system is getting away with murder.
Exactly.
Because people are so poor. Because people are so desperate. Because people just need to make sure, okay, let the shadows of my children darken the four walls of a school. That's all. If that happens, I'm okay. Now, because that desperation exists to the magnitude that it does, the system can do whatever the hell it wants. Because then you can say, okay, well,
they'll end up in school anyway.
See, they're in school.
In school.
It's like the folks who say, let's have this meeting at 5:15. And then the guy rocks up at 5:56 and he says, but what does this number start with? It starts at 5. It's still 5. So why are we complaining? The same attitude. We're still, are they not in school? Did they sit in a desk?
Yes.
And was there not a teacher saying something? And then at the end of it all, in the middle of it, did they not do an exam? Did they not do midterm? Did they not get 3 days of a holiday? Then did we not come back and finish the term is over? Did those things happen? Then you say yes. They say, so what's the problem? The desperation at the levels at which it is what allows this nonsense that we are seeing to happen. And if you want to look at the flip side of it, they'll continue to, and because of a system that already is so poor in its infrastructure, and not just infrastructure brick and mortar, but so poor in its social infrastructure, That is why then people are so desperate. People are so poor and so desperate in a republic that certain things don't work. But at the same time, because of the fact that they don't have, you can now feed them the same poor services because of their state.
Yeah.
That's
because
where we
they
are.
can take anything.
Because they'll take anything.
Yeah.
What should we do? Like you said, City, one of the greatest responsibilities that somebody feels that they've been given by deity, by God, by whoever higher being, is being a parent. And people, even animals, do anything to protect their children. Anything. They will fight, they will kill, they will do anything. Parents will do anything to make sure that their children are safe, that their children have at least a shot at the future. Parents will do anything, and that's what we see them doing. They will camp and sleep outside an MP's office overnight. They will go through some proper humiliation of being told, panga line, nikupatie check ya 1,000. They will do anything, just at least to be able to take their children to school. And then now we are seeing this is the kind of product that we have. We have a system that is comfortably sitting back and watching as we get over 40,000 Ds in a Form 4 exam.
And it's okay.
And it's okay.
For God's sake.
We have a system where we can just say, how did these kids start doing an exam? Let's take these people to court. The owner of this school should go to court. And it's okay to say that there was no quality assurance at all prior to this. You've just discovered, this is offering that KPSEA exams. No, it should not be. This is a fake exam. It's okay. It's okay to say that our girls who are going to school can get pregnant in the course of school, but they must sit their exam. And the result that they get, that's their result. If you get a grade that is C, that will affect you throughout.
Your life.
Even if you go and you do what you breached, you'll come back and be told, you got a C in this. That's it. It's yours for life. You will not say, I got this C. That's the day that I had just delivered of my baby, and I brought my paper, and I was still confused. I was in a daze. I was in a maternity ward, and I was sitting this particular paper. You will not tell anybody that. But the system forced you to sit an exam.
Your D.
This is a system that says that because you come from a very rural place, that rural place does not deserve to get a lab. So you will learn chemistry. You will read that there's something called titration. You will read that there's something called a burette, a pipette,
You've
and
never
all
seen
those
it
things.
In your life.
You will see a diagram of it, but you will never touch it.
You will never touch it. Or may God help you if your school where your children have gone to, or you as a student, has been in an area that has been hit by floods. Not in 1963, in 2003.
2024.
You didn't sit an exam. You did not sit an exam because of 1, 2, 3. Then they tell you that in 2024 February, you will sit that exam. There is no announcement from the ministry. There is no information coming from the ministry as to which centers will hold these exams that are supposed to be resits for almost 10,000 students in 2024. You have not been told. It is up to you
To figure out.
where this exam will be sat. And you couldn't sit it because your school doesn't exist anymore, literally. If you don't sit the exam, again, that stain forever remains on your record. If by some miracle you sat the exam and maybe you did something because of whatever and you got a poor grade, that stain remains on your record. Then, my goodness, some 10 years down the line, 15 years down the line, remember we're talking about a pillar in your life, education.
Yeah.
If something goes amiss, then you walk into CT's office and you cannot hold a conversation, or you cannot make a presentation, or you cannot argue anything worth your salt. And CT will wonder, what has happened here? How many times do you connect what happens in the future with the pillar of a foundation that you have set in the past? That is what we are doing. We are not talking about just a situation where, we didn't have enough books. Okay, sir, we've printed books. Go. Oh, we didn't have classrooms. Okay, we've built classrooms. Go. What are you doing to the foundation of the millions of children who are walking through these classrooms every year? And if we are not asking that question, if we are not questioning value, if we are not questioning the accountability and responsibility that is placed on the shoulders of people who run these things, if we are not asking those questions, all these other things that we're doing. How
Absolute
much
nonsense.
rubbish?
You know, when you teach geography, chemistry, and everything else, students get to understand that is something you need to pass an exam.
Yep.
But what else do they learn? When you cram all these young people into this small space, when they're supposed to have lunch and they're forced to eat some slop which has been served to them and they don't have much of an alternative, when they have to walk long distances, and when they get home, it's late. They live in houses with their parents, and they know whether it's two parents or a parent, they know the struggles the parents have. Now, this is the real education you're giving this child.
Yes.
So, as I like asking, what do you think you're setting in motion?
It's crazy. What should we do? I think, in my opinion, we should stop everything. Like I said, this is the one thing that all the parents of the very many millions of children who are in school, whether it's kindergarten, through junior school, through secondary school, through university, through tertiary education colleges, the one responsibility that we have is to make sure that our children are fine.
Yeah.
And if the children are not fine, what are we doing?
Why?
Stop everything and address this. We keep talking about it. You hear Belio keep say, we are doing everything so we can have
Making every
classrooms.
effort to ensure. Nah.
Magoha built classrooms, but in secondary school.
Yes.
All right.
Which we are not using them again.
Now, those secondary schools have some extra classrooms. Primary schools don't have classrooms. Belio Kipsang is building classrooms again with, what's the CS called?
Ogamba.
They're trying to build classrooms to accommodate the 8s into 9s. They will not be done.
The
They
ones
will
in
not
secondary
be-
school will not
They
be
will not be
utilised.
ready by January, for sure.
They will not
There
be
will
ready.
be schools that do not have that extra classroom.
I reckon there'll be
done.
many schools that don't
Eh.
have the extra classroom.
Yeah. But we want to pass like that. You know, we asked our MPs to also help us, because of CDF.
And
so
we
we've
tried.
also been asking MPs to, then MPs will say, but there was a delay in release of funds for CDF, then this and the other. Meanwhile, these kids who went to grade 7 and they did not learn for an entire term are going to grade 9 and they will not have a classroom. Same children.
Same children. The same children. These children are the ones who started off this CBC thing. They are the ones who started. We gave them that situation where they went to grade 7, no books, I don't know what, no teachers. One history teacher was teaching everything from morning till night. They did somehow stumble their way through class 7, stumble their way through grade 8. Now, they come to grade 9 and you're telling them, oh, hi. Just sit over here for a minute.
Yeah.
We are building the classrooms.
And
For God's
as you're
sake.
waiting, let's see if we can find a teacher.
Yeah. Then we're also printing books. So
So just
Wait.
wait.
And also you wait for bursary.
Just wait.
Stop everything.
then you're okay.
So
I'm
that's,
okay.
I think that's Eric's solution. You stop everything, rethink everything. But yeah,
The fact that students went for that length of time without learning tells you we can actually stop.
Yes.
okay.
Are they alive? Yes.
Yes.
Have they suffered? Yes.
But
Are they
let's be honest.
disadvantaged? Yes.
Let's be honest. In 2021, when children were at home for 9 months because of COVID, you want to tell me that they learnt the full syllabus?
No, they did not.
They sat at home. Magoha told us that we want to take care of our children and make sure that they're healthy instead of putting them in school where they might get sick. So it is very possible to say, hold on. Regroup this thing.
Let's rethink.
Anything worth doing is worth doing? Well, leave it alone.
Do it that way. Parliament should actually not be discussing anything else. Parliament should now be saying, okay, so where are we? Where are we? Can all 270 plus 47 plus 12, can all of us just go to the constituencies and inspect and make sure that these schools are ready, that these children are learning, that the quality assurance is actually happening, that the education directors are doing their job, that it's not, we can't get to a point where there'll be another year of another KPSEA or whatever exam is going to be sat and it'll be a fake school. We shouldn't. Anyway,
Yeah.
if people want to send their
Yes,
comments,
yes.
the what should we do again?
And just to add, parliamentarians should do this at the same speed
At the same
That
speed
we've
as
seen
they
in the
did
last-
other things.
Yeah, they did
one
other
week,
things.
one day, we
Yeah.
can see 6 things being done.
They can even sit on a Friday.
Yeah. Yeah.
At night.
All right. So for you, as I mentioned earlier, maybe just also to mention, there are a couple of topics that we got a lot of feedback from. So I don't know if there's something we just want to showcase on the screen, and this is basically the feedback that we got from everyone, and this is from Kenya's education sector. We're going to corruption and governance, access to healthcare, about SHA. That is a discussion that is particularly very important to people, social inequality and access to resources, youth employment, and finally, public participation. So these are issues that we are going to discuss over the coming weeks. And for you to share your opinions, for you to answer the questions about solutions we need to do, especially in the education sector this week, go to all these social media channels, search for ZKE, share your views. Same thing, the WhatsApp number, as I mentioned earlier, for you to save, 0701 244-896. Share your views, and we'll be able to have a discussion.
This is a conversation by the people. Not it's just the people. Let the people speak. Thank you very much, Allan, for joining us.
Yeah.
Allan Cheboi is a data and tech expert at the ZKE campaign. He's been our guest.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.